And welcome to Valley Sports Telegram presents the Sports Telegram. We have got an exciting one here. We're in the thick of the NFL season, going into week 7. Week 6 is in the books. We've got some excitement brewing, and I think we're all a little excited about this. So I'll kick it to Kenny and let him. Well, let me rewind. As always, joining us this trio here, myself, Arshavir Saryan, Kenny Hodges, and Kaylie Harden, week in, week out, and we're excited. I think we're all riding a little bit of a high. So we'll kick it to Kenny and get this baby rolling.
Listen, man, we are blasting full speed ahead into week 7. And you know how we do. As the master of ceremonies of the Sports Telegram, I come with the headlines, I come with the action. But as always, we start every one of these episodes when we talk our football, when we get on our ish about our teams. We always start with our Homer segment. And this week, first time all season, I can confidently say, we're all sitting pretty happy with what happened this weekend. Some more happy than others when we get into the weekly picks and some stuff, but we'll save that for then. We're gonna start with love. So, Kaylie, let's start with you. Your Browns. I asked you a question. I asked you a question last week. I asked you if Vegas was disrespecting that Cleveland Browns defense by making that team a 10-point underdog at home. You thought it was justified, but you were still rooting for your guys. You thought they'd have a shot, and they pulled the upset 19-17 over the vaunted San Francisco 49ers. Like, that was so shocking. I almost had the wrong sport. The San Francisco 49ers put the first loss on them this year. What are your thoughts about how your team performed this weekend?
I did not think that my crippled Browns team was going to be one of the best teams in the league this week. And so it was very exciting to see. I got my morning started off right. And, where I go to watch the game, they give out free shots when the Browns win. So I was having myself a day before noon.
Absolutely. And there were two things I feel like were worth mentioning points for me with that game. One, you got to give it up to PJ Walker. If you're familiar with his story, played in the XFL, played really well there, worked his way into getting a shot at being a backup. I think he was the backup in Carolina for a cup of coffee. Ends up being the third string, making the Browns as the third string. He was behind the rookie DTR, but they decided to go with him, who's a little bit more experienced against this San Francisco team. And listen, he did what you needed him to do, which was to not completely F the game up, not throw it away, and let the defense make plays. And he did his thing.
Yeah, and I will say, I think that when I had said it wasn't outrageous for the Browns to be a 10-point underdog, I was thinking that, okay, well, first of all, I wasn't thinking about PJ Walker, but now looking at the way the game ended, it's actually genius of Kevin Stefanski to use those 2 weeks to be able to coach him into a position where he's not throwing like a backup quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And his consistency actually, I felt, was safer than how Deshaun Watson throws the ball sometimes, because he's still humble. So I felt like that was a really secure choice. I thought that was a genius coaching decision to have him in the slot, or him in this position to be able to play so seamlessly with that offense. But ultimately, I think this was a battle of the defense of these two teams. I think that there were multiple points in the game where Kevin Stefanski bet on the Browns offense. He was taking field goals when he had the opportunity to go for runs. And he bet that the Browns would get the stop that they needed to in order to keep them in the game. And so they took a field goal at a certain point when they could have gone for a touchdown and it would have put them up a little bit. It would have put them up. But he was confident that they could get the stop and bring the ball back down the field, which they did. So I think that he was really making some questionable, but ultimately correct moves with that defense. And then when you're playing with a crippled offense and hanging with the best team in the league, like you gotta give that man his credit. Like he really put it down on them. And today, on Sunday, that was the most that they had trailed. On Sunday, that was the most that the 49ers had ever trailed another team in this entire season.
Mm-hmm.
And it was against the Cleveland Browns, which is insane. One other insane point that I want to bring up, and this is the only thing about the game that I think the Browns could have done differently. On that last third down, we should have ran the damn ball, because that field goal by the 49ers was a nail biter.
Mm-hmm.
That was a real nail biter. And we honestly got lucky. And I think that at that point in the game, that's where our home field advantage really kicked in, is when they missed that field goal, because I had a lot of friends that were sitting in that end zone. I had a lot of friends on Snapchat sitting in that end zone. And so I'm watching this, live, but I'm seeing it through social media as well, through the perspective of all my homies in Cleveland. So I think at that point, that was a lucky strike for us, but we should have ran the ball on that third down instead of trying to pass it. That was just an opportunity for them to try to pick it off, and keep it and win the game. But ultimately they did what they had to do. That was the only point in the game where I questioned the coaching decisions. But aside from that, I am really proud of my Browns this week, and I'm picking them this week too.
It was a great performance by Cleveland. It was a great performance by the defense. The last thing I'll throw in there before we move on to Arshavir and get into his teams. Zadarius Smith is my front runner for low key best free agent acquisition from this past offseason, because what he has brought to that team, and you saw it this week. It felt like a guy who knew San Francisco inside and out, because he's been through the wars for all those years he was in Green Bay. If there's anybody that was on that field that knows what San Francisco wants to do, what they're trying to do, is going to be a guy who was sort of the linchpin of that Green Bay Packers defense the last few years. And now adding him to that Browns mix, it's sort of allowed Myles Garrett to take some of that pressure of leadership off his plate, and he's just out there playing. Because Zadarius Smith, you can tell when you watch that team, he is seamlessly sort of settled into that leadership role, being sort of the bridge between the veterans and the young guys they have out there. And he's kind of controlling everything up front. You see him talking to the refs. You see, like there was a call in the game where it was an obvious face mask, but you see him get up and look at the referee and go, "Come on, give me that one." And the ref's like, "What do you want me to do, bro? You had his whole face mask." So Zadarius Smith, and if you know that guy, he also brings a levity to a team that sort of kind of brings everybody together. So that guy has been great for them. And that defense, I don't see them slowing down anytime soon. Speaking of not slowing down anytime soon, Arshavir, we will go into your teams. Let's start with the game on Sunday. Let's start with your Raiders. An interesting game. I thought that they'd win that game by more than what they did, but they did what you expect the team with a closer like Max Crosby to do, and they slammed the door on the Patriots, came away with a victory, ran their record back to 3-3. How do you assess your team's performance, and what do you see from them kind of going forward here from this point?
Instead of leaning on the defense, they needed the defense to bail them out.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a problem with that, because if you need your defense to bail you out, you're not going to win too many games. They got the Bears coming up So I'm kind of excited about the way the defense has finally decided that they're going to show up. Not that Max Crosby doesn't, but the defense as a whole. And they're going to need something else, man. They're going to need something else. Garoppolo's made a glass. And something's got to give on that offensive end. So I'm not getting my hopes up at all. I said this a couple weeks ago. I have no hope. And when it comes to the Raiders, I do not get my hopes up. I just watch. And if they win, they win. And if they lose, well, I go grab another beer and just chill.
Well, here's what I'll say. I think I might be a little bit more positive about the situation, only because this particular game, you had to assume they were going to take. It was Custer's last stand. Crusty old Custer, Bill Belichick. This was his last stand. This was the last chance for them to get anything out of that season. Now I think we can go ahead and start closing the lid on the coffin of this carcass of a team in New England. They gave it their best shot. They're nothing to sneeze at on the offensive side of the ball, but they can play a little bit defensively up front in that front seven. So they were going to make that game ugly because that's the only way they can try to win a game. I thought it was just positive because what we have seen from the Raiders in recent times, those are games they lose. They don't win these games. When a team drags you into the muck and mire, they usually that drive at the end of the game is usually a 98-yard drive that ends with a field goal and them losing the game 20 to 19, as opposed to Max Crosby making a move in the end zone and putting Mac Jones's ass in the dirt and finishing that game off. So, kudos to them. They should get to 4-3, because that Bears team is an ungodly mess at this point. But we'll check in on them later. Well, you know what we're going to do? We'll save your thoughts on the Cowboys because that team is one of the teams in the headlines, because we got to get to other pressing matters at hand. Okay? We got to get to my team. We got to get to my New York Jets. 6 weeks ago, they buried us. When Aaron Rodgers limped off that field, they said we were done. We won that game in Buffalo. Then we went on the road to Dallas. It was a stinker. We ended up 1-3. Fast forward a couple weeks later, we end up 1-3. They stole the game from us from the Chiefs, and they buried us. Now we sit here 3-3. We had Jalen Hurts seeing ghosts. And you two buried my team. I gave y'all the chance to take this Jets defense, and y'all both decided to fire them. And I think they heard it, because that was an inspired effort by that Jets defense. We were down Sauce. We were down DJ Reed. We were down our starting corners, and we still put the seatbelts on A.J. Brown and on Skinny Batman. They were nowhere to be seen in that second half. We shut them down. And quiet as kept, Zach Wilson has not been a dumpster fire. Whatever Nathaniel Hackett is doing, they are finding ways for this kid to kind of just not mess the game up. Just take what's in front of you, get the ball to 17, get the ball to Garrett Wilson, who is incredible. He's an incredible talent. And the Jets find themselves in a position that I don't think any of us thought they'd be in, which is, after the gauntlet of quarterbacks that they face, still sitting here at 3-3. You know what? At one point when we talked on Sunday night, I said I was going to pump the brakes on Robert Saleh, saying he was embarrassing these quarterbacks. But when you go back and look at what they've done, when you look at how ugly Pat Mahomes' game night was, when you look at how ugly Jalen Hurts played, when you look at what we did in the opening game against Josh Allen and what we did to Russell Wilson, we did embarrass these guys. We did humble these guys. These guys are trash, and we made them look like trash. Okay, I'm waxing hyperbole here, but I will say, I didn't think that we would be able, even with as great as our defense was, I didn't think we'd be able to hang with some of these teams in the AFC. But now I'm sitting here looking at the Jets at 3-3. We're right back in the mix in the AFC, and we might be able to kind of stay in the playoff race. We might be able to stay in the chase. because none of these teams are running away. Buffalo looks beatable. My God, they escaped the Giants last week. Kansas City, yeah, they got a great record, but they don't look unbeatable. So I think my guys got a shot to stay in this thing. So kudos to them. Kudos to that defense. Kudos to Robert Saleh and that staff. They did not fold the tents when Aaron Rodgers went down. And oh, by the way, that man is not even in a walking boot. He's over here throwing passes on the sideline like a maniac on Sunday. He said he was going to make the quickest recovery anybody's ever seen from an Achilles, and he's already out of the walking boot and just wearing regular sneakers. So I think that is also giving the team a boost as well. So, hey, listen, we'll see where it goes with the Jets. I'm happy there at 3-3. I thought we'd be 1-5 and I'd be crying on this podcast, but I'm not. So kudos to them. Now, moving to NFL headlines. There were a lot of news and notes, things to talk about. There were so many things, honestly, coming out of this week that I couldn't even fit everything in because we'd be sitting here for an hour and a half. Like how many quarterbacks got hurt this past weekend. I think we were up to 5 or 6 starting NFL quarterbacks who ended up injured. But aside from that stuff, let's start with the obvious headline. The 1972 Dolphins, those old fogies, they get to crack another bottle of champagne. There'll be no undefeated teams this year as both the Eagles and the 49ers fall in week 6. The question I have for you two, obviously, there's a reason why these teams lost. You can point at the Niners and how guys started dropping like flies from that lineup. And when you look at the Eagles, this entire season, despite being 5-0, now being 5-1, they just haven't looked offensively like the team they were last year. So if I were to ask you guys, of those two teams, what is more concerning for those two teams going forward? Is it the Niners and those injuries, or is it the Eagles and not being able to kind of figure things out offensively? What do you say? What do you say, Arshavir? What's more concerning from those two teams, the Niners injuries or the Eagles offensive woes?
Well, I think the book is out now. If you put pressure on Jalen Hurts, he is not as nearly as dominant. And he lived in a pressure cooker on Sunday when they lost in the Super Bowl. He was under pressure and duress the entire game. But to me, health is always a bigger concern. Debo's out. They got a lineman out. CMC is hurt. And the problem is with the short season in the NFL, right? They only play 17 games. Physically, a lot of times you only have 4 real days to recover before you got to get beat up again. Almost no one finishes a season completely healthy, but when you have nagging issues like the Niners do, it's tough. I mean, it's not saying that they don't have the weapons. I mean, Ayuk still looks healthy. You got Kittle. So there's still weapons, but when your top guys are nursing nagging injuries, that's a concern because you could start a game thinking you're going to lean on them, and then you got to pivot. And when you pivot, it's a huge question mark as to how that person coming off the bench is going to fill that role. So the biggest issue for me is health. Niners.
I have to agree with Arshavir to that point, but also both, like when you look at these two losses, you're looking at two teams that lost against two franchises that are also not completely healthy. I mean, both teams, the Browns and the Jets, they're missing the quarterbacks that they thought that they were going to spend this year with. The Browns have some other injuries Nick Chubb. That he's a playmaker for that team that they've been doing without this season, and it's definitely made an impact. But I do still think that the 49ers loss here is a little bit more concerning because the Jets Eagles game, you could make the argument that, the Jets had a really good week and the Eagles didn't. And that defense just came and put the business on them. But with the 49ers, the issues that they saw against Cleveland, those can permeate and those can continue. And that might not be something that they can just those injuries might not be something that they can just fine tune as they suit up for next week. Now they have to re-strategize. This isn't going to be something that they can just watch film and figure out and put back together. This is going to be something where they have to re-strategize their offense a little bit. So, especially if they're going to continue to go up against teams that are better than the Browns. To lose against the Browns, I'm a Browns fan. I love my Browns, but that's a far fall from grace.
Yeah, I can't say that I disagree. Health is wealth, especially in NFL. If you have too many of your top line guys go down, it's hard to win games, even against the teams that you think that you're supposed to beat. But I wouldn't undersell the Eagles' offensive woes only because that team lost their offensive mastermind and Shane Steichen, who got the job as the Indianapolis Colts head coach. And you can just tell the chemistry between Jalen Hurts and that new offensive coordinator is just not there. And also, they're not running the ball like they did last year. Part of the reason why Jalen Hurts had some of the success that he had and was able to sort of make those leaps is that he didn't have to sit back there and throw the ball 45 times. And it doesn't matter who's the quarterback in the league. What we're seeing from the Jets is if you dropping back to throw the ball 45 times against this defense, the way we can rotate 8, 9, 10 D linemen in there so nobody's tired and Quentin Williams is in your damn face all day, everybody's going to struggle. So I think they've got some things to figure out because, like I said, they haven't seen the Cowboys yet. They haven't seen the Niners yet. And the Niners, that's the game on the schedule the Niners are circling because they're still pissed because they lost everybody named Mama at the quarterback position last year in the NFC Championship game, and they feel like they would have won the Super Bowl had Brock Purdy not got hurt. So the Eagles got some things they got to figure out quick because they got, like I said, even this week, they're playing that Dolphins offense. They're going to have to put some damn points up to beat that team. So hopefully they can get those things sort of straightened out. I love Jalen Hurts. I hate that I had to be the team to put an ass whooping on them for the first time this year, but I'm not going to apologize for it. Hopefully you get better next week, Jalen Hurts. Moving on to the next headline. The Cowboys beat the Chargers on Monday Night Football. It was a close game. It was a good performance by Dak Prescott. He didn't turn the ball over at all, which is always sort of the benchmark for Cowboys success. If Dak Prescott isn't turning the ball over, they've got enough talent on both sides of the ball that they're probably going to be in a position to win games. And they did what they had to do at AT&T West on Monday night, where there was a lot of Cowboys fans in that building. But I think the biggest question I wanted to ask you guys coming out of that game, is it time for us to start asking questions about Justin Herbert? Yes, we know he is a talented quarterback. He's an all-world talent. But here's the reason why I'm asking that question. We are now starting to see a pattern with Justin Herbert where he is sort of coming up short in moments where it'd be easy to blame it on that coach. But at some point, now that they're paying you $250 million, there is an expectation for you to carry your team across the finish line. And that last drive when they're to end the game, it just kind of looked ugly. He forced the ball towards Stephon Gilmore that he should have never thrown. Yes, whether he was under pressure or not. So the question is, we'll start with you, Kaylie. Is it time for us to start asking questions about Justin Herbert? And is he not progressing the way we see other quarterbacks from that draft class show leaps and bounds in their development? Are you concerned about Justin Herbert?
Well, so I like the Chargers. But I think that they're still trying to figure out this offense and how they want to strategize against I don't want to say that Justin Herbert's development is falling behind. I think that he graduated with, I think that in his class and in his draft class, he was among some other really talented performers. And I think that in that way, when we get comparative, it can discredit him a little bit. I still give him the rest of the season and honestly the beginning of next season too. I mean, the Chargers are also not an easy franchise to just like step into and, make this amazing run. So I give him some more time. I'm not ready to criticize that man just yet.
Arshavir, what you think? Is it time to be concerned about his struggles late in these ball games? What do you think?
Not yet. I mean, here's the thing. They blamed the offensive coordinator before, and that's why they made the switch to Kellen Moore. My problem with Kellen Moore is he has a penchant for allowing his offense to build up something big and then getting super conservative and just pooping it away. Now, what I saw on Monday night was a man running for his life. Yes, he was only sacked once. Yes, I think he was only hit on that one sack, for real. I'm trying to remember him actually getting hit in that game. But there was pressure in his face. There were 2 or 3 throws to Keenan Allen that were not close, that were because of the pressure. I think it'll be more telling how he does when he gets deeper into divisional play. They got the Chiefs coming up. They still have to face the Raiders. They've got winnable games against the Broncos. So I think how he breaks down this season under a new OC and what comes of it, that's going to say more. Honestly, looking at what's happened, I really can't fault him too much. Though I will say the interception he threw at the end of the game on Monday, you don't throw that ball, or you throw it away. Now, granted, he had just been laid out by Micah Parsons the play prior, and Parsons was in his face again. So when you get hit by Micah Parsons, you see nightmares. So,
but I'll say this is why I asked that question. The reason why I asked that question is obviously he is always going to be compared to Joe Burrow. They're from that same draft class. You're always going to be compared to Joe. And we know how cool Joe is, right? Never rattled under any circumstances. This guy, look at even how the Bengals season started. Everybody was ready to sound the panic alarm. And then Joe Burrow says, look, the calf's fine. Hold my beer. Back-to-back dubs. We back at 500. We rolling again, right? The issue with Justin Herbert is he sort of kind of felt the opposite. You're right. That interception at the end of the game probably was a result of the pressure in his face, but that's sort of almost becoming his calling card. If you can get to him late in games, he tends to get rattled. And I don't know if I can blame that necessarily on Kellen Moore when Ed Werder had tweeted out this stat about Justin Herbert, and I was like, oh, that's not good. He said with Stephon Gilmore clinching interception, that was Justin Herbert's 13th career interception in the fourth quarter of a one-score game. That's 5 more than any other quarterback in the NFL since he entered the league in 2020. That's an alarming stat. That tells you that when he gets in late game situations, he gets a little bit rattled. We saw it in the playoff game against Jacksonville last year. Once Trevor Lawrence got going, he kind of felt like he went into a shell. I'm not ready to write him off or anything like that. I'm just saying I think I think the eyes are starting to turn towards Justin Herbert and say, hey, at some point you got to overcome the coordinators. You got to overcome some of these things, these circumstances, and you just got to make a play. There was a play in that third quarter of that game that drove me nuts where I don't know what he was looking at. Keenan Allen was streaking wide open down the middle of the field, and he never even looked his way. So it's those sorts of things where you're looking at Justin Herbert and it's like, boy, they paying you $250 million. You've got to solve these fourth quarter woes. So, we'll see. He'll get a chance to sort of right the ship against Kansas City this week and against Pat Mahomes, but we'll see. So now let's move on to a team in the headlines who isn't having any offensive woes or defensive woes. They've been handling business. Quite frankly, they probably should be 6-0. A couple of different decisions down the stretch when they played the Seahawks in week 2, and that's the Detroit Lions. They go on the road, they handle the Bucs in those awesome creamsicle uniforms the Bucs broke out that we hadn't seen in a long time, and they improved their record to 5-1. So my question is, now when you look at the top of the NFC with Philly and San Francisco losing, they've got some company now at the top of the NFC with these 5-1 Detroit Lions. So while they still have 11 games to play and there's a lot of season left, do you guys think the Lions should be taken serious as a Super Bowl contender? Kaylie, we'll start with you. What do you think about these Detroit Lions?
I think that's a little bit dramatic. To start calling the Lions a Super Bowl contender, I mean, granted, they've had a really good season so far. I think there's a lot of people that aren't ready to count them out as far as, definitely making the playoffs. But to say that they're going to be a Super Bowl contender, I think that we need to pump the brakes a little bit on that one. Arguably, at this point in the season, with maybe some more worthy adversaries, given their record, you could say that, but they beat the Bucs last week. Let's calm down.
All right, Arshavir. Okay, so we see where the Kaylie's at with this. What do you feel? Do you think that we should be looking at this team as more seriously as a Super Bowl contender?
Well, I mean, they did what they're supposed to do, right? You beat the team that's in front of you. You beat a team that you're supposed to beat. So, but until they can show that this run is sustainable, there's some health questions with Montgomery, and that's, something you got to keep an eye on. Goff has never shown to be consistent enough long enough. He did play the Rams deep into the playoffs a couple times, but again, so I'm not ready to anoint them as a contender until we get into December. Let's see where they are in 8 weeks.
But if I told either one of you, going back to 2022, the last 16 times this team has taken the field, they're 13-3. Does that change your mind? Because I know, and we've seen a lot of teams sort of get hot, start a season a certain way. But this is clearly a continuation of that foundation, that philosophy change that we sort of saw with them at the end of the last year when they went into Green Bay, and essentially it was their playoff game, basically ending the Aaron Rodgers era up there in Green Bay, and they've sort of carried that into this year. Does that hold any weight in terms of what we're seeing from that team this year, on top of them adding pieces like CJ Gardner-Johnson and some of the things that we're seeing in the development of their young players? Does that change anything? Especially when you talk about an NFC where who scares you other than the Eagles or Niners? Does that change anything for you guys?
For me, you telling me they're 13-3 in their last 16, which is, that's a cumulative season at that point, basically. Yeah, I'm a little more inclined to maybe not dub them Super Bowl contenders, but they're definitely, NFC Championship contenders at that point.
Yeah, I stand on what I said too. Like, Playoffs for sure. Super Bowl, let's slow down.
Okay. Listen, I'm just a question man. I got to throw it out there. That's my job. I literally sit here, I study these trends. They were a team that I had sort of earmarked as if it looks like it did last year at the start of this year, maybe we should have them in the conversation. Hey, listen, and they got a quarterback, whether people like him or not. Jared Goff has been in a Super Bowl before. You know, you ask Rams, they'll take them or leave them, but you know, they got experience at that place. They've got Aiden Hutchinson is turning into baby TJ Watt up there. You know, they got some cooking. You guys might be right. Maybe it's a little early to anoint them as a team that could hang with San Francisco and Philly. But I'll tell you what, I don't know if I'd want to go up there and play them in January if they find a way to get that 1 seed, because that place is going to be nuts with all these crazy people in there. This new trend, all these people wearing blue ski masks up there. I'm not going up there. That's crazy. But moving right along to our final headline of the week, and that is the parity that we're seeing and across the AFC and the NFC. Now, with there not being any undefeated teams, no one the pack is sort of coming together, and we've got a lot of teams sitting in that 3-3, 3-2, that 500-ish area. So the question I have with a lot of these teams sort of kind of not separating them away from themselves, which of those teams that are sort of sitting in that area do you believe in the most to stay in the hunt towards as we're barreling down to the halfway point of the season? When you got teams like let's start, you know what? Here's the easier way we'll do it. We'll start with the AFC, because you got the Colts, the Texans, the Jets, Raiders, all 3-3. And I'll throw the Browns and the Steelers in there, who are above 500 at 3-2, but they're sort of in that mix. Of those teams in the AFC, who do you have the most faith in that they'll be able to sort of stay in the playoff hunt? In a stacked AFC where, quite frankly, maybe one of those teams might get into the playoffs. When you look at the Chiefs, the Dolphins, the Ravens, the Jags appear to be the favorites to win the South. The Bills, the Bengals look like they're sort of kind of figuring it out. That's why I didn't even bother to put, even though they're 3-3, I didn't bother to put them in that mix, because I think we all know they might be a cut above a lot of those other 3-3 teams. But of those teams that I mentioned, who do you have the most faith in to maybe kind of steal that 7th spot and get into the AFC playoff race? We'll start with you, Arshavir. What do you think?
I think there's 2 that stand out to me. And the first one, even though health is an issue, the defense has shown that they're legit, and we've known that this is a legit defense. It's the Browns. Yes, it's the first one that stands out to me out of that group is the Browns, and then the only other one that I'm comfortable throwing in there, no, I look at it again. There's 2. Because if I put the Browns in, I got to put the Jets in, because you're leaving.
We're about to have an issue.
Defense. And if I make the argument for one, I have to make the argument for the other. So the third team, so you got the Browns, the Jets, because if they lean on this defense, they can make noise. Look, if they don't get in, they're going to play a spoiler. And the third and final one is the Texans, because there's something special brewing there.
Oh,
and
CJ Stroud is the truth.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's what stands out in the AFC for me.
All right,
Yeah,
Kaylie, what do you think?
They're putting something in the water in Texas this year. Someone's got to go down there and do a science experiment on that. But I'm not as confident in the Texans as I am with the Browns. And Arshavir went first, but I think that it was pretty predictable what I was going to say anyways. I was going to pick on my Browns, but the only thing about them that makes me hesitant is that if it comes down to it, it needs to go down like it did a few years ago, where we lose to the Steelers in the regular season and then beat them in the first round of the playoffs. If Cleveland can do that, Cleveland has a really good chance at making it farther than they've ever gone in the last 30 years. So ultimately, I think that these next couple weeks are going to be really telling. I think when you look at the Browns' schedule as a whole, they had some of their easiest matchups in the first couple weeks. So the fact that they're just sitting above 500 with the bye is it's a little nerve-wracking, but then again, you do see that we don't have our roster that we were supposed to. So a lot of moving parts there, a lot to consider, but I still think that after the defensive performance that they put up against the 49ers and showing that even though we've always had quarterback struggles, this is the tune that we sing every single year. There's running joke in Cleveland where people will have a jersey, but then there's duct taped underneath the name the 10 quarterbacks that we've had in the last 3 years type deal. Like, this is a running joke. But I think that now that we see that Deshaun Watson, he can take an injury and PJ Walker can win against one of the strongest teams in the league. That's very exciting. And I think that after the Deshaun Watson injury, a lot of people counted Cleveland out, and they're not counting Cleveland out anymore.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys have said. Yeah, the Texans feel like a team. CJ Stroud is miles ahead of where we thought he would be in his rookie year. Already making Panthers fans feel like they made the wrong choice. Taking Bryce Young, moving up and taking Bryce Young and not taking him. But that's what y'all get. Everybody wants to have biases against these Ohio State quarterbacks, and now look what CJ Stroud's doing, proving all of y'all wrong. But the one team that we didn't mention, but it's because until he has a losing season, you just can't count him out. And that's the Steelers. That's Mike Tomlin. Until Mike T shows you that he can't go over 500, they always going to be a pain in the ass. They always going to be in the mix. So
and they are the thorn to Cleveland on Cleveland's rose, and they are also our Achilles heel. If we can't mentally get past the Steelers at some point, it's not gonna come together for us.
And hey, and that can be said for a few teams, because poor Lamar Jackson walked out of Arshavir Stadium, whatever the hell that place is called now, and was like, how did I lose to this team again? Because they just find a way to beat these teams and just give everybody nightmares. All right, so let's move on real quick to the NFC. Obviously, Niners, Eagles, like we just talked about the Lions. The Lions are clearly the best team in the NFC North. They're going to win that division. They're going to run away. They're going to beat up on that division, probably win 11, 12, 13 games when all said and done. We know the Cowboys are good. Yeah, they can be a little inconsistent and make you scratch your head. But like I said, if they can just throw the ball to CeeDee Lamb, they're going to win 12 games at a minimum. The Seahawks, that defense is awesome. Yes, they lost this game this past week, but we're not really worried about the Seahawks in terms of being in that playoff mix. But when you look at that next crop, we're going to kind of be figuring out who those other two teams are in the NFC. You've got the Bucks. You've got the Rams, who are somehow staying in it at 3-3. You've got the Commanders at 3-3. You've got the Falcons, who are a bit of an upstart. And you've got the Saints, who have been a little inconsistent, even though we know the talent that's there. Of those teams, who are you looking at and saying, I think these teams can kind of stay in that race and make some noise and try to get into the playoffs? Arshavir, you can start. Who do you have?
I mean, the NFC is so much tougher when I look at it. I'm like,
a lot more plain Jane over there.
Yeah, well, because look, right, all these teams have so many more warts. I mean, all the teams that we're talking about, have their warts. But I look at the NFC and I'm like, the Bucks, Baker Mayfield hasn't proven anything other than the fact that, he is what we know him to be. And then the Rams are 3-3, pretty underwhelming to be a 500 team at this point. They've had their issues. The Commanders, are they a year ahead of schedule right now? Because they're surprising people. The Falcons, again, outside of Bijan Robinson, what do they have? Like, to be consistent, what do they have? And the Saints, I'm like, I really wanted this team to be better than they're showing on the field because I absolutely love Derek Carr, but he has never proven to be a quarterback that will win you a Super Bowl. He also didn't have a team around him to do it, so I look at it. I honestly, if I had a gun to my head and I had to absolutely pick one or two, I'd probably ultimately say the Rams because of the pedigree with the coaching staff and everything that team has been through, and probably the Commanders.
Okay. Okay. All right, Kaylie, what do you got? What do you think of that crop of teams?
I mean, Arshavir really just took the words out of my mouth entirely. I was also at the beginning of the season, if you go back and watch our first pod for TST, I was singing the praises of the Saints too, and I wanted to see them perform this season. They've been extremely underwhelming. I think that the Commanders are just pleasantly surprising people, but I think that that's one of those things where you just can't get your hopes up entirely. I think it's a little too soon for that. But at this point in the season, I think that the Rams, especially how they started, which I don't think was a surprise to people. I don't think anyone was really that shocked to find that they are still like trying to rebuild things and put things together. It's disappointing after seeing them win the Super Bowl a couple years ago. So I think that the Rams being where they are, given everything that they've been through in the last few years, I mean, things have been really shaken up for them in a short span of time. So to see them hanging on and playing with the big dogs still the way that they are, I think that I would put my money on them.
Yeah. Here's the theme I'm going to throw in there that you guys stayed away from or said very dismissively. I think I'm clearly a little bit higher on Baker than you guys are. Kaylie, I completely understand why you aren't.
Bro, I don't want to hear anything about Baker. I don't want to see any progressive commercials. I don't want to see him and his fiance or wife now kissing on Instagram. I don't care. Yeah. I don't want to see it. I feel about Baker Mayfield the way you feel about Taylor Swift. And he's actually an NFL player still.
Yeah.
When I turn on the NFL, I don't want to see him.
Yeah. Well, no. I completely understand.
Kind of rubbed off onto me. I mean, come on. You guys remember I was high on Baker Mayfield, really wanting him to succeed. And I'm actually a little disappointed with what I've seen so far this season. So, but Kenny, continue.
See, but that's the thing. I kind of see it differently. I haven't been disappointed in what I've seen from him. Before this game this week, he'd actually played pretty well. They were 3-1. He hadn't really turned the ball over. He hadn't done Baker Mayfield things. You hear great stuff coming out of Tampa in terms of how the team is sort of galvanized around him and he's a leader there and all this other stuff. And when you look at that division, there's no other team in that division other than the Saints. And the Saints are so up and down now. That should kind of stop them from winning that division. Because quite frankly, whoever gets the 10 wins is going to win the damn division. The other team that I look at the Falcons. And the thing with the Falcons is they're ahead of schedule. I thought they'd be worse. The reason why they're not worse is because they got some really good young offensive talent on that team. Drake London, the SC product, Kyle Pitts, that tight end, Bijan Robinson. I'll tell you this about the Falcons, though. They need to get on the phone. They need to call the Chicago Bears. They need to offer a 4th and a 5th. Go get Justin Fields. The Bears don't want him. They've mistreated him. Go get Justin Fields. Go give him an actual opportunity to work with some good young talent down there in Atlanta, where he's from, where he'll be welcomed with open arms. Go get that guy. Chicago don't want him. Go get him and see what you can do with him.
But before we give Baker too much credit, let's look at the way that their schedule has been put up so far this year. I mean, you've got the Jets and when Aaron, well, and that was in the preseason, but you got in the preseason, they won against the Jets, they won against the Ravens. They lost to Steelers, whatever. So even setting up this season, we're seeing a team that's like, okay, yeah, maybe they can hang, maybe Baker, maybe Baker is going to take what Tom Brady left behind and be able to run with it. But then you start the season and you've got the Vikings, the Bears. Okay, those are easy dubs. Like that they should have won those games. I'm not giving him so much credit for winning those games. And then you've got the Eagles. That's no surprises there. Go Birds. They're up this year. So that's not a shocker or any discreditation that you can take from Baker for losing against them. That's to be expected. The Saints, that point spread though. I mean, okay, yeah. Let me give you a little credit there. But then they lose to the Lions with almost an identical point spread. So I don't they haven't been a shocker. I don't think that they're shocking anyone. If anything, Baker is doing exactly what he's supposed to, which is like, am I supposed to sing your praises because you're doing your job that you're getting paid for? No.
Hey, listen, I digress. Like I said, I am not a Baker Mayfield fan. Arshavir, first of all, let's put all the cards on the table. You still mad about him going in that one damn game as the damn Ram, and he lit it up and beat the Raiders in a game the Raiders should have never lost. You still mad about that. I'm still holding grudges from his first ever start when they put him in there and he's the damn conquering hero and he beat the Jets on that damn Thursday night game. That shit still makes me mad because I'm mad because we had a lead in that game and he comes in guns a-blazing and everybody's like, this is the guy that's going to take the Browns to the promised land. And no, he didn't. He just was a pain in my ass.
I got to look. We're saying full cards on the table. That game against the Raiders didn't do anything for me. Because that Raiders team wasn't going anywhere. You know, that was the epitome of the Josh McDaniels teardown last year. So, y'all called me out earlier this year for actually singing the praises of Baker Mayfield and then him doing Baker Mayfield things of imploding. So, you know, that's my thing. I started to temper my expectations with him again, just because, you know, I wasn't blown away so far this year. You know, he managed the games he was supposed to manage well. Yes, the only poor outing was the one he had last weekend, but I'm yet to actually be impressed this season. And that's where I temper those expectations with him.
Okay. All right. Listen, I digress. We must move on. And we're going to go into our weekly picks segment. So far on the season, the boys holding steady in first place. Kaylie was in second place, but after a rough week, in which she went 2-2, lost her lock of the week. She slides in the third. Arshavir had a good week, 3-1, hit his lock. He slides back into second place with 19 points. But again, it's still anybody's contest. Nobody's running away. I escaped with a perfect week by the skin of my damn teeth because the Buffalo Bills made that game against the Giants. Way too interested. So we're going to go right into it. I've let you guys go first the last couple of weeks. I'm going to go first this time because this was a week. It doesn't even matter. We all struggle finding games because we're hitting that point in the season. Teams are on a bye. They are just games that are just too difficult. They're the games that feel like a coin flip or you just don't trust anybody in order to pick somebody who you think is going to win. And I definitely agonized and struggle. So I'm just going to put it all on the table. My first game I went with, I'm taking the Raiders over the Bears. This is not because I have any real confidence in the damn Raiders. This is more about the fact that the Bears are a dumpster fire. Justin Fields is hurt now. There's not even a timetable on him even coming back with that thumb. They traded Chase Claypool away because he just wanted to get the hell out of there. DJ Moore has been great for them, but besides that, there's nothing else to talk about with this team. If the Raiders don't win this game, I personally would like Josh McDaniels to be shown the damn door because you should go to Chicago coming off the momentum of a big win at home, and you should blow the doors off of this team. Even if Brian Hoyer is starting, you should win this game. My second game, this was a tough one. I know this is really risky, even though this team has been really good, because they're going to be playing against a team that's going to be pissed off, and I'm going to go Dolphins over the Eagles. This was because I was all over the board picking games. I know this is a risk. The Eagles are going to be pissed off after losing last week, but I am concerned about their offensive woes. I am concerned that they're going to put up enough points to kind of stop what Tua and that offense does. I think it has a chance to be a bit of a shootout, but I think the Dolphins are going to win that game. My third pick, I wanted to stay away from this team because I really didn't like how they made me sweat it out last week on my lock of the week. But I'm going to go back to Buffalo. I'm going back to the well again. I'm going Bills over the Patriots because the Patriots are just awful. They are a dead man walking. There's zombies out there offensively. There's nothing there that should scare you if you Buffalo. And honestly, Josh Allen looked terrible in the first half, but he looked better in the second half. I'm hoping he can kind of keep that momentum and put his foot on the Pat's neck. And my lock of the week, I'm going Seahawks over Cards. Yes, I know the Cards look way better than anybody thought they were going to. Josh Dobbs is playing better than anybody thought he would. He's playing better than the Cardinals probably thought he was going to, because I still think secretly they gave him that job because they wanted to tank. But he's keeping them competitive week in and week out. We've seen them stay competitive with the 49ers. We saw them stay competitive with the Rams until the Rams kind of pulled away in the second half. I just think the Seahawks defense is too good. They're going to beat Josh Dobbs up. They're going to beat this team up. So this is just a game that seemed to make a lot of sense to me. So my lock of the week are the Seahawks over the Cardinals. So Raiders, Dolphins, Bills, and my lock of the week are the Seahawks. All right, which one do you guys want to go?
I can go next. I actually had two of the same games as you did, and the two that I had that were the same as yours were my potentials to pick for my lock too. So I'll start out. I'm going to pick my Browns because we're riding high right now. I think that we go in. I think that we handle business against the Colts. I think that given what we've done against the 49ers, this should be no problem for us. But I hope I don't come back to regret these words next week. That being said, I'm not counting the 49ers out yet. I think that they're still a favorite in the league overall. So I'm going to take them over the Vikings as well. Next, I'm taking the Bills over the Patriots for surely. And after all that shit I was talking about Bill Belichick last week, I think it's only right that I take him for one of my picks this week, the Bills against the Patriots. And then my lock and my last pick of the week is going to be the Seahawks over the Cardinals. And I'm not doubling down or tripling down or whatever the hell I have left to use because that bit me in the ass.
All right, Arshavir, you're up next, bud. What do you got?
Oh, yeah, this one was interesting. I'm taking the Raiders over the Bears because, yeah, this dumpster fire of Chicago. They've leaned on the defense. The Raiders have. So here's to hoping the defense carries them one more time. I'm taking the Commanders over the Giants because the Giants are not consistent. It looked to me like they peaked a little bit last week. And Washington looks like they will be the spoiler team in the NFC East. So that's what I got there. I'm taking Green Bay over Denver because Denver's another dumpster fire. Just all up in everything. Sean Payton, I don't know what happened to that coach. It might be just because he has Russ, and Russ just does not look like he knows what he's doing anymore on the field. It sucks as someone who used to really like Russ. And my lock is Bills over Patriots because that Patriots team is just, I cannot see them lose enough. So that's the lock. Bills over Patriots.
Okay. All right. As usual, good luck to everybody involved. I'm slowly pulling away from you guys, but you guys might be able to reel me back in. But your boy,
If the Seahawks or the Bills lose this week, things are going to get real interesting.
that is true. That is true. But all right. So as we know, our final segment, I like to switch it up on you guys every now and again. Try to make things fun. Let's go away from the whole format of, oh, what do you want to watch this weekend? We know what we want to watch. Like I said last week, we want to watch everything because the NFL is just fun and compelling on a week-to-week basis. There are tons of games you want to see. So let's go away from that. I thought this week we would throw another little something in there for the final segment. We're going to do a super secret trivia game. Kaylie versus Arshavir. You guys are going to battle it out in a trivia game, and I'm going to let you know exactly what we're doing. And this trivia game is called Browns, Boys, or Both. Rules are simple. I'm going to give each of you a name of an NFL player. You have to tell me if that player played for the Cleveland Browns, if he played for the Dallas Cowboys,
Oh, Jesus Christ.
or if he played for both. Now, listen, it might seem like this might be tough, but
You guys had conscious thoughts way before me. This is not fair.
like I said, it's not as complicated as it seems. There will be some names that'll sound foreign. There's going to be some names that sound familiar. Now, as we get into the game, you'll kind of pick up the flow up. Matter of fact, for round one, there'll be 5 rounds. Each of you, I'll throw a name out there, and you each will get to say if you think they play for one or the other, or if they play for both teams, right? So ease you guys in. Round one, the first player I'm going to give you is Amari Cooper. Did he play for the Cleveland Browns? Did he play for the Dallas Cowboys? Or did he play for both? Kaylie, you start.
Fuck, I know he plays for the Browns. I don't know if he ever played for the Cowboys. The Browns? I'm going to say there's Browns.
Okay, Arshavir, what do you think? He played for the Browns, the Cowboys? Did he play for both?
Both.
Fuck.
Yeah. That was a bit of a toss-up for me.
That's 1 point for Arshavir. All right, round 2. These names will start to get a little tougher now. And that's what I said. I said when I put in the docket. Yes, some of it is a test of skill on what you know, but I'm going to throw some names in here because I'm a sicko. And when I've compiled this list, I realized that I knew things that I'm like, why do I know this? Why do I know who this guy played here? Why do I know this guy played for this team? Why did I know that this guy played for both? That's how I came up with this game, because I was sitting here and I was thinking of guys who played for both teams. I don't know, because random shit goes through my head on a daily basis. So for round 2, here's the name that I'm going to give you guys. Leroy Kelly. Did he play for the Cowboys? Did he play for the Cleveland Browns? Did he play for both? Arshavir, you start.
I'm gonna say Leroy Kelly was the Browns.
I've never heard that name before in my life. I'm going to say he was a Cowboy.
No, he was a Cleveland Brown.
Jesus Christ. When?
Leroy Kelly was a Cleveland Brown. He played for the Browns from 1964 to 1973.
My mom wasn't even born then. That's not even...
He was a Hall of Famer. He was inducted in the Hall of Fame in 1994. He had over 7,000 yards and 74 touchdowns in his career. He was an All-Pro for 3 years. He made the Pro Bowl for 5 years. Leroy Kelly was a Cleveland Browns great. All right. Round 3. Arshavir's up 2-0. Let's see. Throw a name in here. All right. Okay, I got a good one. I'll go with a more recent player. He's an old lineman, Cameron Irving. Did he play for the Browns? Did he play for the Cowboys? Did he play for both? Kaylie, you start.
I think he was a Cowboy. I don't think did he play for the Browns? I don't think so. I'm gonna say he was a Cowboy.
All right, Arshavir. Cam Irvin, was he a Cowboy? Was he a Brown, or was he both?
I know Irvin, and I think he was only a Cowboy.
No, he played for both teams.
What the fuck?
Now,
Whoa.
he played for both teams, but he was only a Dallas Cowboy for 1 year in 2020. Most of his career, or the beginning of his career, he spent with the with the Cleveland Browns. He was drafted to the Browns in 2015. He was there for 2 seasons. He bounced around a little bit, and then he was a Dallas Cowboy in 2020. So, no points awarded there. Kaylie, you still got a shot here going into round 4. All right. For shits and giggles, I'm going to get you on the board here, Kaylie. I'm going to get you on the board. All right. Jim Brown. Was he a Cleveland Brown, a Dallas Cowboy, or did he play for both?
He was a Cleveland Brown for show.
But did he play for both, or was he just a Brown?
I think he was just a Brown.
What say you, Arshavir?
Yeah, no, I'm inclined to agree. Just Cleveland.
He was just a Cleveland Brown. The greatest Cleveland Brown, in my opinion. I don't care what nobody talk about no damn autogram. It was Jim Brown.
He is a Cleveland legend for show. You gotta be to get a shout out from LeBron James on the gram.
Exactly. All right. Round 5. Where do I go here? I have a bunch of names. Let's see. I want to go tricky. All right. Got it. Let's go. Garrett Gilbert, quarterback from out of SMU. Was he a Brown? Was he a Cowboy? Was he both? Arshavir, you start.
I think he was a back. I know he was a backup. I'm gonna say both.
All right, Kaylie, what do you say? Was Garrett Gilbert a backup for the Browns? He indeed was a backup. Was he a backup for the Browns? Backup for the Cowboys? Or did he get a cup of coffee in both places? What do you think?
See, if he was a backup quarterback, it actually would make sense if he had spent some time in Cleveland because we love to cycle through those. But all of these names are like aside, like most of them are from before I was even born. So I'll say, yeah, he probably played in both. I mean, if he's a backup, he probably bounced around. So we'll say both.
He indeed played for both. So you both get the point. All right. Arshavir, you took the first quiz. You took the first Penny super secret NFL quiz. You took the first one. Congratulations. 3 points to 2. Kaylie, it was a valiant effort. I tried to trick you guys as much as I could. And as the season goes along, I got a few more of these up my sleeve. Listen, you never know. I'm a bag of tricks. I'm a mixed bag. I got all kinds of stuff rolling around in this brain. And every week it's going to be something different. So next week it'll be something. And then at some point, bam, I'm going to throw another pop quiz on you guys because this is the kind of stuff that I do. It's fun. and it's fun to just have fun, and and throw things around and keep things interesting and keep my co-hosts on their toes. But as we always say, as we wrap things up, please like, subscribe if you like what you're hearing. Like I said, when we do these, this is just an opportunity for you guys to be a fly on the wall for conversations that we just have off camera, off air all the time anyway. But we thank you guys for your support. We're going to keep these rolling out. Stay on the lookout because we're going to have more of these, and they won't just be football right now. These are football because it's football. So we do these. These are the ones this is the relevant topics at the moment, but we got NBA stuff coming. We got hockey stuff coming. College basketball is around the corner. And as always, like I said, tune into our weekly roundups where we talk about all the action in and around the Valley on the Valley Sports Telegram, because we bring you everything that has anything to do with our local teams, our local kids, our local sports, and then stuff from around the globe in the world of sports. So thank you guys again. This has been another episode of the Sports Telegram. For Arshavir Saryan, for Kaylie Harden, and myself, Ken Hodges, thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Thank you.